You weren't out here last time, so. Well, that's done. The 4x8s are up. They're not in place. The one, I think there's two in the center here that are toe-nailed in to keep the walls the right spacing. In the bedroom areas, the bathroom areas, it's not too hard to keep the walls the right spacing because we have the interior walls kind of butted up to that center beam. But out here, this wide open space, the walls kind of move around a little bit. So got a couple toe-nailed into place, helps hold it a little more secure. And we got all the 4x8s up there. They're not lined up by any means. They're just kind of, Well, actually, I think this side we spent more time lining them up. We got down toward that end, and I think that's the point where I was just like, you know what, let's get the things up here. Let's get them up here, and we'll space them somewhat and line them up later. Get it done. It'll be easier to line them up than get them up there. So we got them all up there, ready to go. A lot of work, a lot of hard work. Started out hoisting them up on the end over here, like you saw in the last video. And then we got to the high spot over here and couldn't really do that. There wasn't enough space. I didn't have that stack of OSB to stand on to make it easy. So we got the backhoe out, lifted them up, 2, 3 at a time, lifted them up, and I just drug them off the backhoe, off the forks. Unfortunately, the forks aren't tall enough to get to a 9-foot wall. They're tall enough to get to an 8-foot. I think they go 8.5 feet, but they're not tall enough to go to a 9-foot. And I couldn't really, I could have put it up on ramps to make it get up on the 9-foot, but I can't drive it forward and back too much with the beams on them because that water spigot out there. I was getting kind of nervous around that water spigot. So it worked out though. It's a little bit of work, but it's got done. It's looking a little better, looking a little more like a house. I did make a mistake on the first 7 I put up. I wasn't looking at my plans correctly. And I put them up so that they were exactly 24 foot wide, just like my walls. And I figured the OSB would just go up and cover them. You would just nail into the end of it. But on the plans, it shows an extra board, like a fascia board, that goes, it's supposed to go up, and then the OSB covers it. So I had to cut those back 1.5 inches on each side. And what I did is I just took 3 inches off one side and then evened it up. But that leaves room for that 2x fascia board, and the OSB covers it. The guy at the lumber place, he's looking at my plans and kind of going over everything with me. And he explains to me, he says, well, because I asked him why, you know, if the OSB is going to cover it and we're going to spray foam insulation right there, what's the deal? We're going to have rafters that hang out at a 45 pitch. It's not like we're going to come in later and kick her off of it with another set of rafters to make an awning or anything. What's the deal? And he says, well, you can't nail your OSB to end grain because it doesn't give any shear resistance. So you nail a 2x, which in my case, I'm going to have to get a 2x10 and mill it down, or run it through a table saw to mill it down. Actually, I could just use my mill. It'd probably be easier. Because these are custom milled 8 inches tall, I'll have to get 2x10s and cut them down to 8 inches tall exactly for that fascia board, that piece of lumber that has to go there. He says I can nail that into the end grain and then nail my OSB to that, and for some reason nailing into the end grain at that point is okay. I figure you're only as strong as your weakest link, and if you're nailing into end grain at any point, there's not too much use in stacking stuff up in front of it. I don't know. I'm not a house guy though. I'm a car guy. So I'm trying to do everything by the plans. The plans are engineered. They're over-engineered at that. 4x8s, 2 foot on center, 6x12 for a center beam. This house is going to be built pretty solid. I'm not too worried about it. And if I go by the plans, I don't think there's anything that's going to go wrong. So we got that done. Took a couple days to get them all put up, but it's done now. I'll go get my 2x10. I'll cut it down and put a fascia board up and nail these all in place. We've got brackets coming for these 4x8s. We've got brackets coming for the rafters, brackets coming for pretty much everything. We've got all kinds. I think we have like $2,000 in brackets coming. But it's coming along. It's tiresome. All these heavy beams taking a toll on my arm. I scratched my arm up pretty good on one of the beams. Started wearing a sweatshirt that I just cut the back out of, cut the hoodie part off of it, protect my arms a little more against the grain of the wood that was scratching me up. We did have to make one more change to the plans. The plans were drawn up with 7/8 tongue and groove plywood for the flooring on the second floor. And nobody around here seems to sell 7/8 tongue and groove plywood. So we're changing that up to either 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood or 1 1/16 tongue and groove plywood. inch and a 16th, inch and an eighth, something like that. Anyways, the price difference is like $850 for the 3/4 inch tongue and groove, or $1,400 for the inch and an eighth tongue and groove plywood. Not a big difference when you think about the cost of a house, but I'm wondering if I need eighth or inch and an eighth. This is 2 foot on center. A lot of guys are saying, including my engineer that I talked to about this, he says you could go inch and an eighth, but honestly, they usually save that for something that's going to be more than 2 foot on center, or what, 32 inch on center or 4 foot on center. That's when you usually step up to that really thick plywood that's tongue and groove. I'm 2 foot on center on 4x8s, so it's not even a 2x that you're 2 foot on center. This is a 4x, actual 4-inch wide, so the space in between is a lot less. I'll check it out when I go down to buy the flooring. I'll check out the 3/4 inch and the inch and an eighth. I'll see in my mind whether it's worth the extra money to put that thicker plywood up. I know you can get tongue and groove and OSB also. My engineer was talking to me about that. He says, you could go inch and an eighth tongue and groove is probably the same price as 3/4 inch plywood tongue and groove. The difference is when you get it wet, it has more of a tendency to fall apart than plywood does. So you put a vapor barrier down or something, and it kind of keeps track of that also. There's all kinds of different ways to protect your house. We'll see. But until then, until next time, go make something.